Hey guys, Dane at CardTech710 here, coming at you with another video, and this is geeking out on non-sports cards again. To me, the term geek is not really a bad thing. Actually, the definition, if you really want to get into it, it means an expert or enthusiast of a person obsessed with a hobby or intellectual pursuit, which is kind of a nice way of saying geek. You know, it's still not as bad as my opinion of saying calling someone a nerd or dork. I'm not saying it's going to get you laid or being voted the king of the prom either, but still, it's just a cool thing. I'm a big TV enthusiast, especially while growing up. I used to spend every summer from like 1982 through 1985 or 6. My mom would take us to Japan, Okinawa, Japan, the day after school ended, all the way through Labor Day. So it was like 3 solid months of being in Japan or in Okinawa. And in Okinawa, the U.S. Air Force and U.S. Marine Corps had their own Armed Forces channel, low-powered channel, so like there was a lot of static. But when you're starving to use English, I mean, I would watch all kinds of TV. I mean, I had friends in Okinawa that I would play with, but after about 2 or 3 weeks, you're just starving to use English. So shows like Gilligan's Island, F Troop, The Waltons, MASH, Munsters, Addams Family, Little House on the Prairie, I mean, Happy Days, Dukes of Hazzard, just on and on and on. I would watch anything I could just because I was always just dying to hear the English language, you know. Non-sports, actually, card collecting in general, for me, actually started with this card here. It's not really a card, it's actually a playing card that I submitted to PSA because it was autographed by Doyle Brunson. I used to gamble quite a bit, and this is right about the time when things like the World Poker Tour and the World Series of Poker is real popular. So I actually submitted this to PSA, and it came back gem mint 10 for his autograph. And this actually started me on my path to collecting again. Speaking of geeks, it doesn't get much more geekier than Star Trek. I used to love this show. This is the 76 Star Trek number 2 James Kirk and a PSA 7. Not really well centered, but this is actually the primary, well, it's Kirk's first. He's featured throughout the set, but this one card, starting with number 2 and through number 6, has like the key crew members. This is the number 3 is Dr. Bones McCoy and a PSA 8. And believe it or not, this card here is actually the most sought after card in the whole set. And you figure it would be Spock, but it's because to get this in a high grade, like this is a PSA 8 and it's really well centered. Where this was in the cut sheet, it's very difficult to get cards like this in a high grade. There are only 4 PSA 9s. And they all, when they do go on auction, they sell for well over $1,000. And even people like highly rated Star Trek Registry PSA members have trouble getting this in a PSA 8 as well centered as this one. So this is kind of the prize of the whole Star Trek set, even though it's just an 8. It's, like I said, there's only 4 9s. There's no PSA 10s. And this one here is actually really well centered. So it's my most expensive card in the Star Trek set. This is the 76 Star Trek Science Officer Spock. It's Spock's first card. So this is number 4, also in a PSA 8. And I'm pretty happy because this entire Star Trek set, like any other set, is very difficult to get centered. And this one's a pretty nice copy. This is Scotty, or Engineer Scott, also in a PSA 8. I'm happy with it, but I would have been happier if it was just a little better centered. But these cards, a lot of the crew member cards, the early, the low numbered, not a lot of them for sale on eBay. I actually got these from 4 Sharp Corners, and I've been collecting these for about 2 months, I think. And I finally got the initial crew member card set, but This one's an 8, and I tried to get most of my cards in an 8, although my James Kirk is in a 7 and not very well centered, so I am on the lookout for an 8 or better. A 9 would be better, but I'd gladly take an 8, but I wanted to complete the set, so I settled for a 7. And this is the Lieutenant Uhura in a PSA 8. Another card that's very difficult to get, so 8 that's well centered is actually very difficult to get. Pretty happy with it. And this is, I never knew how to say this guy's name, but this is Ensign Chekhov in a PSA 9. Pretty happy with this one too. It's really well centered. Again, especially the horizontal cards, difficult to get centered on this set. And that's basically the crew members. Oddly enough, Sulu, or George Takei, does not have his own card. For some reason, I guess when they were filming Star Trek, he was actually acting in other movies, which the producers of the film producers of the show really didn't like. The show lasted 3 years through 80 episodes, so a lot of times people think of Sulu, but he actually does not have his own card, which is kind of strange. But not a crew member, but the only other Star Trek card that I got was from my favorite episode of Star Trek, which is the Gorn. I don't know if anyone ever seen this episode, but Kirk is basically stuck on a deserted planet, which they call the Arena, and he's got to fight this lizard-like creature called the Gorn. And as a kid, when I watched this, the Gorn actually did scare me because he's this scary-looking reptilian being. They had this like dagger made of obsidian, and he's basically on the hunt. He's a slow-moving, methodical killer reptile, and as a kid it scared me, but I've actually seen clips of this on eBay just recently, and the special effects, I mean, it's basically a guy in a rubber suit, mouth doesn't move, and I kind of laughed to myself because as a kid I remember this used to scare me, but this was my favorite episode by far. Another non-sports card is the 56 David Crockett number 1 in a PSA 7. It's the most difficult card to get in the set and also the most expensive. Not really well centered, but to get this in a high grade, 7 is considered a high grade because remember this is 1956. Love this movie. I actually watched this when Betamax, people that actually remember Betamax players. I got it from a video rental store that was selling Betamax tapes really cheap because Betamax was basically becoming obsolete, and VHS was becoming sort of the new standard of video rentals. But the first Davy Crockett and also the Davy Crockett and the River Pirates, I absolutely loved that series, and so did my dad. It was a series that me and my dad got to sit down together and watch, so just a lot of fond memories, but that's the reason why I got this card. And very happy to hear that Dave at Blue Jacket 66 also collects non-sports cards. He actually commented on my first Geeking Out on Non-Sports Cards video, and he actually collects, I think it's Mars Attacks, which is another set that I'm collecting currently, and also the Bruce Wayne Batman set that I showed earlier. I showed the first card, that's Bruce Wayne. He's actually collecting that set as well, and I think he says he's also going for like Gilligan's Island and the Brady Bunch. So I'd be very interested in seeing if he ever posts a video on non-sports cards, because he's an avid vintage card collector from mainly baseball, but I would love to see his non-sports cards if he ever posts that. Besides non-sports cards, I am also into boxing cards, especially vintage boxing cards, and I guess they're categorized as multi-sports cards. But some other cards that I picked up recently is the 1901 Ogden Tabs Heroes of the Ring John Sullivan. This is like the first famous bare knuckle boxing champion. This is in a PSA 4. And this is Ogden Cigarettes, I believe, was sold in the UK, but Like I said, first really famous bare knuckle champion. And second card I got is the E75 American Caramel John Sullivan in a PSA 4 as well. And again, it's John Sullivan. And it's funny because this is I think it's 08, I believe. And this is 1901. And if you take a look, you can see where basically they got the artist rendering picture. I mean, similar stance, no gloves, just real classic card. And it shows like his opponents. You know, the famous boxing champion, 1923 Monarchs of the Ring, Jack Dempsey. Jack Dempsey was the heavyweight champion. He wasn't the biggest. I think he was only like 5'8" or 5'9", but he was known for hitting tremendously hard. And he was the champion for quite a while, so he gained a lot of popularity during that time. And so 1922, 1923 would be his rookie year. Still, a really good looking card. This is a SGC 7. And really simple back, but it's just another famous old school boxer. And the other one is from 1948. It's the 1948 Leaf, Jack Dempsey in a SGC 5. Pretty well centered, and this is card number 1. So first card in the set. And with Leaf, you see it has some of the red residue, I guess, from other being stacked upon other cut sheets. But SGC 5, which is still a pretty good grade for 1948. And for Leaf, this is also pretty well centered, even though it's definitely not as well centered top to bottom. But that's it. That's my recent boxing pickups and non-sports card pickups. And you know, when it comes to non-sports cards, to me, it doesn't get more geeky, in my opinion, than Star Trek. But still, great set. And I'm still on the hunt for a few others. Like I said, I'll be looking for at least a PSA 8 or above in this card here. But for the time being, just to complete my set, that's why I got a PSA 7. I'd like to thank everybody for watching. I appreciate all your comments, and for all those that subscribe. And as always, you guys, thanks for watching.